Welcome to National Preparedness Month, day 4 of the collaboration of about 18 different YouTube creators. And we're putting together specific topics for you so that to help you understand better what we can do during an emergency or after an emergency. So today is day number 4. This is the Cold War Prepper channel, and my name is Lee. I've been involved in preparedness now for just over 60 years. Or just at 60 years. Basically in 1962 in El Paso, my home was about 3 miles off the end of the runway for Biggs Air Force Base, and they had B-38s and B-52s, or B-36s, I'm sorry, B-36s and B-52s. And during the Cuban Missile Crisis, of course, they were always taking over our homes, flying and taking off, and we could see them about one every two to 3 minutes. And but my next door neighbor was the block civil defense warden. And he built a cinder block fallout shelter in his backyard. So I was a young guy, 10 years old. I figured, hey, this is interesting. So I really got involved in it, learned everything I could about fallout shelters when I was 10 years old. And he just kept providing me with literature, and I just kept absorbing it. I've been doing it ever since. So, but certainly I am not an expert in everything. I have a lot to learn. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite channels is going to be doing the corollary to what I'm doing. And I'm doing Cooking Over Fire. And Kylene Jones, and possibly Jonathan, her husband, will be with her, are doing other means other than Cooking Over Fire. And that's going to be in another one of these 30 days worth of preparations that you'll be seeing. And so I'm looking forward to that, because I always learn something every time I see the two of them. But anyhow, so when is appropriate to use what I'm talking about? When is appropriate to use what they're talking about? Well, let's take some things. And remember that fire has some telltale signatures to let people know that you're doing something. So the first, of course, is going to be when you light a fire. At the very beginning, until you have good combustion, there's going to be a lot of smoke. And so during the daytime, smoke is very easily seen. During the nighttime, it's not as easily seen. But smoke will betray the fact that you're outside cooking. Then the second one, of course, is light. Anytime you have a flame, it's going to produce light. That's going to be more observable at nighttime. It's going to be less observable, but still observable during daytime. And so that's something you might have to take into consideration. Then I'm sure you've walked out on your back porch before and took a sniff. You said, Robert's out back grilling again. And how did you know that? Because you could smell it. The wind is going to blow that in your direction, and you can tell that somebody's grilling or barbecuing just by the smell of the charcoal. And so that can give away the fact that you're cooking outdoors. And then, of course, there's also one last thing, and that's called convection currents. And this isn't quite as common or as commonly known as the other three, but convection currents are when there's a difference in temperature between the ambient temperature and the ground temperature, and you see these kind of like waves. You always see them in desert movies where there's the cowboys, or in North African movies, where there's camels. You see these waves of heat coming up. Those are convection currents, and that can also give away the fact that you're heating. Well, why is this important? Well, the important thing is it can be suicidal to be a fat man living in the land of the emaciated. So you have to take into consideration, if your neighbors aren't cooking, then, and you're going to be inviting guests over, whether you intend to or not. So you want to be as cautious as you can and consider all the ramifications of whether or not you're offering them an idea that you're cooking. The idea is to be as gray man as possible. So using the facts of smoke, light, heat, and possibly even convection currents, when is the best time for you to cook so that your neighbors don't know that you're cooking? What we might possibly consider is doing what Kylene's going to be talking about for maybe the first 2 weeks until people have run out of stuff, because they're going to be outside cooking as well. Now that you've done that, you've used up your outdoor cooking, then you go inside in a more clandestine way. You're going to do what Kylene's going to be teaching you to do. And she'll probably also be talking about sun ovens, which don't produce anything that we talked about here. So where are we going to do this? Well, probably don't want to do it inside. If I were to build a home today, I would say one of the specifications would be, I want a wood-burning stove as a secondary stove in my kitchen. Now, I would probably design an extended kitchen outside, simply because you don't want to use a stove indoors here in Central Texas in the summer. It's already hot enough. You don't need to add a stove to that. But in the winter, it would be advantageous. So, but you do want to do all your cooking on a wood-burning stove, unless it's properly ventilated outdoors. Avoid the carbon monoxide problems. You also want to beware of prevailing winds. Set your fire pit up in a place where the prevailing winds are not going to blow the smoke until it actually completes its combusting. That smoke can be blown into your home. And if you don't have ventilation, if you don't have electrical ventilation and fans and everything else, that can kind of ruin your day. So try to put it upwind from where you're put the flame downwind from where you live, so that it isn't blowing into your home. The third thing you want to do is you want to keep it at least 25 feet away from other flammable objects. That could be your wood pile, newspaper pile, dead grass, trees, especially any other liquids you might be storing, gasoline, diesel oil, or diesel fuel, charcoal lighter, and things like that. So keep it away so that it doesn't become combustible. You also want to make sure that you have something in that area so that when you take hot objects off of the fire, you aren't going to put them in an area where they might start a fire. So like taking it off the fire and putting it on the grass, and then the bottom of the pan is so hot that it can combust the grass. So what do you want to burn? Well, you want to burn cured wood. So now is the proper time to go out and start stacking your wood. You want it to cure a minimum of 6 months, and preferably up to a year before you use it. The green wood is not going to combust as well as will dry wood, and it's going to produce a lot more smoke. It's not going to be worth it. So try to cure it for a while. Separate your piles so you know which ones are oldest and you use first, kind of like rotating your food. Avoid using commercial grade lumber. It has some chemicals that have been injected into it, and as preservatives and everything else, and that can put off toxic fumes, and it will make your day not. So anyhow, there's another one I like, and I'll show you. I'll put a link down below on how you can build one. It's called a biopress or biomatter press. And so what you're going to do is take paper, wood chips, grass, leaves, anything that's organic matter, and you're going to put it in a tub, soak it in water, kind of make it where it kind of falls apart. Then you're going to put it together into a can, press that down, get rid of all the water, and it forms into a donut. And then you're going to take it and put it aside and dry it. That becomes a burnable fuel. In Africa, it's a very common way for them to make their biomass pellets, let's call them, so that they can cook. Now, you can get commercial pellets, and I've seen them at Tractor Supply. I think I saw them once at Lowe's, but not very often, because there are some wood-burning stoves that are pellet stoves, and so they have to make them for those. The next one is there is a roller, and I'll put a link for it down below, where you can take old newspapers, magazines, any kinds of papers, and roll them into a log. It's a very tightly compressed log, and it'll burn for a couple hours. So that's another way you might want to go as far as something that you would burn in your outdoor fire pit. Plan on probably about 2 cords of wood to meet your cooking needs over the course of a year. So that's 2 yard cubes. 1 yard by 1 yard by 1 yard. I think that's a cube, 1 cubic yard. But anyhow, now you want to have 3 different kinds of wood as well. So I have 3 35-gallon trash cans out back. One of them is strictly for tinder. Now tinder is going to be your toothpick size, up to about the size of your pinky finger. So these are the ones we want to start the fire with, get them going. Then we're going to lay tinder on top of that. Kindling on top of that. And kindling is going to be roughly the size of your finger up to, about the size of a pencil up to maybe your thumb at the max. Your finger is going to be ideal. Now, so the tinder down on the bottom is going to light the kindling. Then once the kindling combusts, then you're going to put your regular split logs on top of that so that they can catch fire. So what we're doing is we're building up the width of the fire as it goes up. There are 2 common ways to do this. One of them is called a pyramid. You're going to lay your wood sticks in a pyramid shape over the top of your kindling and tinder. And the other one is what they call a log house. So you're going to have 2 this way and then 2 this way, and then they keep coming in so that it looks kind of like a obelisk. Some how-to tips. Number 1, use the flames to boil things. And there's a kit out there called the Kelly kettle, and it's very, very good at containing the heat and getting things to boil in a lot faster means. So get a Kelly kettle, and that will help you to boil water really quick. You don't use up too much of your kindling or your tinder or your firewood. The second one is you're going to use the coals. Once those flames subside and it comes down to where it's a coal bed, that's what you're going to use to cook. So if you need more heat, add more fuel to the fire. If you want it to be less heat, take the fuel away. But you know, you're used to cooking on a stove at home, so you can turn the power down or turn the gas down and it's not quite as hot a flame. You don't have that option with an open flame outdoors. So what you have to do is you either have to move your cooking utensil higher up away from the charcoal, or lower down to adjust the heat, or move it around within the charcoal so that you can get better heat. Now, one of the other things is your stove has perfect symmetrical heat, so that flame, when it comes up, it's in the form of a circle, and it's going to dissipate equally over the bottom of the pan. Not so with charcoal. So one of the things you want to do with charcoal is, you know, there's going to be hot spots and cool spots as you're cooking. Turn your whatever cooking utensil is about 1/4 of a turn every 15 minutes so that there's equal heat on all sides. As far as cooking instruments, I prefer cast iron, stainless steel, or titanium. As a matter of fact, my favorite cooking instrument right now is called a bush pot, and I got it from Self-Reliance Outfitters. Now, the nice thing about the bush pot too is you can turn it on its side, and they have a grate that you can put inside. So you're setting things up off the edge of that circle, you know. So here's the bottom of the pot. You're putting this grate in here. Now you're not. That grate is the only thing that has contact with the walls of the thing. Put the lid on. You have a perfect oven. So you can put in a small loaf of bread or biscuits or whatever you want there. So that's one of the things I really like about the bush pot, is it can also be turned into an oven. I still have my old Army issue cook kit. I still have my old Boy Scout cook kit from the 1960s. The only thing is it was aluminum back then. So if you're concerned about the aluminum giving off some carcinogenic materials, don't use aluminum. That's why I said use stainless steel, cast iron, or titanium. I do have a titanium fry pan, by the way, that I got from REI. And the nice thing about it was lightweight when I did some backpacking. But you know, it's not worth the money if you're going to be staying home hunkered down. So let me see. Let me check my notes here. Okay, so there are two other types of stoves you might want to consider. What I do for my outdoor cooking is I have a small grill, and it's on 3 legs, and so I just take everything out and put my wood in there and turn that into a burn combustible materials inside there. And but you can also get a solo stove. Now I have 2 solo stoves. The nice thing about them is they're gasifiers, so you're going to have complete combustion. There won't be any smoke once it gets started. The other one that's really good is a rocket stove, and you feed the your fuel from the bottom. It has a very high oxygen exchange rate, so that it has pretty close to perfect combustion. Gets really hot. Disadvantage with both of those, you can only put 1 pot on at a time. So you know, these are all things you need to take into consideration when cooking over an open fire in a post-SHTF environment. So as I always do on my videos here with the Cold War Prepper, I would like to end with, remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Be kind, gentle, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care. This is the Cold War Prepper, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.